by William Alexander. Colt, Elora, and Avery had never spoken to each other before they found the catacombs. They were neighbors, but they didn't know each other's names. Colt was 7 years old, Elora 11, and Avery 13. Those ages were separate nations whose citizens didn't really speak the same language, but the catacombs gave them common ground and something to talk about. Colt found the place first. It was bedtime on an early summer night. He had already had a bath. He had needed that bath. Colt liked dirt. He had spent the afternoon helping ghosts in his backyard sculpt new and muddy bodies for themselves. But now Colt was clean. He had brushed his teeth and put on pajamas with feet attached. He had done all the things he was supposed to do at bedtime, except stay in bed. He couldn't sleep. He wasn't tired, so he snuck down to the basement, which was his favorite place. Colt was pale and the sort of pale that sunburned easily and made his skin look like it belonged to a cave creature shut away from sunlight for several 100,000 generations. But that wasn't why he loved the basement. He wasn't really a cave creature. He just had Viking ancestors, not the warrior kind. Colt's people had never been any good at fighting. They were good at singing and catching fish. He knew this because some of his Viking ancestors haunted the bathtub, and they still sang songs about catching fish. The basement was Colt's favorite place because sound behaved strangely there. He hummed the songs of his fisher folk ancestors and tapped out a drum beat on the basement wall. One part of the wall made a different sound from the rest. Colt tapped it again. Then he pushed. Something spring-loaded clicked on the other side. The whole wooden wall panel opened. Colt was surprised, but a part of him always expected to find a secret passage in his own basement. He took a camping lantern and went down into the catacombs. The ghosts of that place were immediately worried about Colt, a young kid exploring in the dark all by himself. Some of those ghosts still remembered their voices, so they sent whispers through the second tunnel and into Elora's basement. Anna Maria, Elora's older sister, had set up her bedroom in the basement, but now Anna Maria was away at film school, even in summertime, because she had an internship. So Elora had claimed the entire basement as her own. She was dancing when she heard the whispers. She was usually dancing. No single spot on the ground was ever interesting enough to hold the attention of her feet. The whispers told her about the wall panel, the one Anna Maria had covered up with movie posters. Elora took down the posters, pushed against the panel, and then went into the catacombs by the shining light of her phone. The tunnel floor was made out of bricks in a zigzagging pattern. More bricks had been stacked to make the walls. Dirt, wooden rafters, living tree roots, and haunting ghosts made up the ceiling. Elora found a wide open room at the end of the tunnel. A ghost with a lantern stood in that room. Elora peered at him. "Wait, you're not dead." "Nope," said Colt. "You're the kid from down the street." "I'm Colt Harper," said the kid. "Elora Giselle Dulce," said Elora. Colt held up the camping lantern to see his neighbor more clearly. Elora was dark. People whose ancestors lived close to the equator were usually dark for obvious reasons. They didn't sunburn easily. Elora's own ancestors came from an island that had sunk beneath the sea. Their ghosts had sang songs about fishing, but none of them haunted her bathtub. Elora's great-great-grandparents preferred to rest inside ice cube trays. Their music escaped whenever their ice melted in lemonade. "Where are we?" Colt asked. "Why is there a secret door and a secret tunnel in my basement?" Elora looked around by phone light. "I don't know, but I can see 3 tunnels plus a door. I wonder where they go." She tried the door. It was stuck. "Okay, forget the door. Should we see whose basement the 3rd tunnel connects to?" "Maybe we shouldn't find out." Colt felt nervous for the first time since he had come down into the catacombs. Maybe one of the mean kids at school lives at the other end. Maybe it's somebody we don't want to share a secret tunnel with. Maybe, Elora said, but I'd rather know than just wonder and worry. If that tunnel does lead to someone else's house, then that someone could use it to sneak right into our houses whenever they want. And if one of the mean kids can do that, then I'd really like to know about the possibility before it happens. Colt slowly nodded. I guess that makes sense. The two of them went through the third tunnel together. They found another wooden panel at the very end. Elora knocked. Avery Nook sat on the couch in the finished half of their half-finished basement, hard at work on a graphic novel about ghosts who knitted new bodies for themselves out of branches and belly button lint. Avery liked to knit almost as much as they liked to draw. Avery liked to keep their hands busy by making things. The linty ghosts of the comic had adventures inside walls and huge hollow trees, where they fought battles against villainous woodchucks. A knock came through the basement wall. Avery wondered if the comic that they'd made up might be coming true. Maybe small and linty warriors were sending a summons to adventure. Probably not, but Avery shifted a big pile of boxes out of the way and listened to the wall, just to be sure. Their family had just moved into this house a month ago, so dozens of unpacked boxes were still scattered all over the place. Knock, knock, knock. Hello? Avery whispered. Click. The wall opened. Two younger kids from down the way stood inside. Avery felt simultaneously delighted and disappointed that their visitors were not, in fact, tiny warriors made out of knitted twigs and lint. The three made introductions. Are you a boy or a girl? Colt blurted out. I can't tell by your name. He couldn't tell by looking either. Avery wore neither girlish nor boyish things. They had darkish skin that wouldn't sunburn too easily, massive glasses to better magnify their most intimidating stare, and short black hair that stuck out in all directions as though pointing to every continent where Avery's family had ever lived. Their people moved around a lot and always had. Avery's ancestors didn't haunt this new house yet, though. Sometimes ancestry takes a while to catch up. Avery tried to smile. A new neighborhood meant new rounds of tiresome explanations. It was like wearing a cast and having to answer the question, how did you hurt your arm, several times daily. Yes and no, they said. Both and neither. Don't call me he or she. Okay, said Colt. Come check out the big secret room, Elora said. It's haunted, obviously, but just in the usual sort of way. The ghosts in the ceiling don't seem to mind company. Avery wrote a hasty note on a blank page of the sketch pad and left it for their parents. Off exploring. Back soon. Colt and Elora showed Avery the chamber in the center of the catacombs. Haunting ghosts watched them from the dirt and roots above. Where does that door go? Avery asked. Not sure, said Elora. It's stuck. The three of them pulled together hard. The door creaked and then banged open. They found a long staircase on the other side. Avery led the way up. The room at the top had been built out of polished granite blocks. It had old leaded windows and a big metal door which was locked up tight. Moonlight shone in through the windows. Elora peered outside. We're in the town cemetery, she said. This room must be a crypt, but it doesn't have a body in it. Weird. It hides the stairs to our basements instead. Avery realized what the catacombs had to be. Prohibition tunnels, they said. Specialists used them in the 1920s when it was really illegal to talk to ghosts. What? Colt asked, horrified. Why would that be illegal? Avery shrugged. Some people freak out about hauntings. Hauntings just get worse if you ignore them, Elora pointed out. Obviously, Avery said. So all the appeasement specialists kept working. They just went underground, literally underground. They made secret tunnels to all the cemeteries. Then the law got changed because that law was a terrible idea in the first place. Now we have proper specialists who don't need to sneak around through tunnels. Some places have proper specialists, Elora said. Here we've got Mr. Armstrong. Is he any good? Avery asked. Elora hesitated. He's very nice. The ghosts seem to like him. My mom says, bless his heart, a lot, Colt added. Crap, said Avery, who knew what that meant, even though they weren't from around here. Well, at least Mr. Armstrong doesn't have to hide. Avery and Colt both stood close to Elora to look through the window. The moon made pale granite gravestones seem to glow. Wisp lanterns flickered from the tree branches. A whole flock of sleeping pigeons huddled together on top of a tall statue. The statue held a cavalry sword high as though ordering a courageous charge against villainous enemies. Avery wondered who that statue was, but didn't ask. Every night, all through the summer, the three neighbors met in the catacombs beneath the cemetery to play card games. Go Fish was Colt's favorite. Avery liked Psychic Lemur, which involved slapping and stealing the discard pile every time someone correctly guessed what the next card was going to be. Avery was best at guessing, but Elora had the fastest slap. Her favorite game was the one that she had invented herself. This is called Sleep Suits, she said. It's a sleepover game. Are we sleeping here tonight? Colt asked, suddenly worried. No, Elora assured him. We aren't sleeping here. This is just the sort of game that you might play at a sleepover, in whispers, while hiding in the camping tent that you set up on the floor of your bedroom. Does it rain in your room? Colt asked. Not usually, Elora told him, but it did once. I found a seashell at the beach and brought it home. The shell remembered tropical storms. It kept sharing that memory with me, which flooded the whole house, so we had to take it back to the beach. We couldn't just mail it to my cousins because the post office won't let you mail tropical storms. Dad was annoyed. Mom liked the excuse for another weekend trip, though. She likes to drive, even in the rain. Did it rain inside the car? Colt asked. No, just outside. We tapped the shell to the roof of the car. We taped the shell to the roof of the car. So how do we play Sleep Suits? Avery disliked the whole concept of sleepover games, but tried not to show it. Elora skillfully shuffled the deck. We take turns picking cards, any card, just one. If you pick a diamond, then you have to tell us something that you wish for, as many wishes as the number on the card. Pick the 4 of diamonds. Tell us 4 wishes. They can be silly wishes, but if it's a heart, you have to tell us something that you really need. A club is a weapon, so share something that you'll fight for. Or tell us about somebody that you want to fight against. And spades means secrets. We'll bury those between us and promise to never, ever tell anyone. I don't get this game, Colt said slowly. I get it, Avery said, but I don't think I like it. What do face cards do? Queens and kings can command somebody else to answer, Elora explained. If you draw a queen, then you get to skip your turn and pass to the left. If you draw a king, then you pass to the right. The next player has to answer for you. If Colt drew the king of diamonds, then I would have to share a wish. Any jacks? Avery asked. Jacks are tricky, Elora said. If you draw a jack, then you give a hint instead of a straight answer. I still don't get this game, said Colt. I'll go first, Elora said in a reassuring sort of way. Avery next. You'll understand by the time it's your turn. She flipped over the top card. Ace of spades. I need to share a secret. Just one, Avery said. That's easy. Secrets are still the most difficult suit, Elora thought for a moment. She looked up in the direction of the ceiling, but she wasn't really looking at the ghost who looked back down at her. Okay, here's one. I was mad at my older sister, Anna Maria. I don't remember why I was mad at her, but I do remember what I did about it. I switched the salt and the sugar in the kitchen. She put salt in her coffee. It tasted terrible. The ghost who haunts the bottom of that mug liked the taste, though, or else it just thought that was my sister's spit take. Spit take was hilarious. Now every single drink it holds tastes salty, no matter what kind of drink it is. We only ever use that mug to gargle salt water when we get sore throats, and I've never ever told Anna Maria that I was the one who switched the salt. It was her favorite mug, and that's my secret. She passed the deck to Avery. Your turn. Avery turned over the 10 of clubs. You've got to be kidding, they said. 10? Elora smiled. 10. Tell us 10 things you will fight for. Take your time. They can be epic fights or petty little fights or anything in between. I'd fight to never have to play this game again, they said. That's one. You'd lose, though. Sleep suits is my favorite. Now tell us 9 more. Avery tried to think of 9 more fights, but they didn't have to. Loud, thumping noises interrupted the game. Ghosts scattered. Loose dirt rained down from the ceiling. Colt jumped to his feet. What's that? It's coming from up above, Avery said. Let's check it out. You're just trying to hide from the 10 of clubs, Elora complained. I'm also trying to hide from the 10 of clubs. Come on. They all hurried upstairs and peeked through the wavy glass window. The statue in the center of the cemetery had walked away from its pedestal. Now it stomped around in solid bronze boots and swung its cavalry sword at the pigeons. Poor Mr. Armstrong was trying to appease the haunted thing, but he couldn't even get its attention. Ouch, Colt whispered as the dull sword ended a pigeon. The statue was still causing a disturbance when the 3 neighbors met on the following night. Avery sat crisscrossed on the floor with a heavy book in their lap. I went to the library today, they said. The statue is of somebody named Beauregard Arrington Grizzle. His ghost is probably the one haunting it. I found his biography, and it turns out that he was a ridiculously bad person. Listen to this. General Grizzle had the curious habit of dueling with swans and geese at dawn every morning. He would wade into the river shallows, where a large flock of the birds were wont to sleep. Once startled, the pugnacious fowl would arch their necks and flap their wings in a fearfully intimidating manner, at which point the general would laugh with delight and then cut off as many heads as he could reach. The graceful shape of their necks is an invitation to a beheading, one that I am simply unable to refuse, he once wrote in a letter to his mother. Ew, Laura said. And he's still at it, still killing birds. He's also tearing up the cemetery, knocking over grave markers and chasing all the pigeons around, even though they don't have such long and beheadable necks. All this enraged her. She had 2 pet parakeets at home. Why did he get a statue? Colt asked. If he was so terrible, why did anybody want to build him one? Avery flipped through the pages. Beats me. If General Grizzle ever did anything righteous or good, this book doesn't mention it. Bronze boots stomped overhead. Agitated ghosts dropped from the ceiling and shifted their shapes all over the floor. Colt took up handfuls of the haunted dirt and tried to soothe them by singing quiet lullabies. Ignore that tantruming statue, Elora said. We have a game to play, Avery. It's still your turn. You can even draw a new card, trying it to get another 10. Avery drew the Queen of Diamonds, which clearly delighted them. I get to pass. Colt, tell us a wish. Just one. Colt stopped singing. The ghost in his hand had settled into a single lumpy shape. I wish I had new sneakers, he said. Mine are too tight and my toes get scrunched up. It hurts. Have you told your parents? Elora asked. No, Colt said. I keep forgetting. So I also wish I had some string. I'd tie a piece around my toe to remind it that it doesn't like to get scrunched. And then maybe I'd remember to say that I need new shoes. I'll bring some string tomorrow, Elora told him. My turn. She reached for the deck, but she paused when loud shouting noises came through the stairwell. Is that the statue? Colt asked. Doesn't sound like the statue. Sounds like a huge crowd of people. It turned out to be 2 huge crowds of people. Colt, Elora, and Avery crept up the stairs and peeked through the crypt window. They saw grown-ups gathered into 2 shouting groups. The noise disturbed dozens of cemetery ghosts who swirled around in circles and threw pebbles at each other. Mr. Armstrong, the specialist, also ran in circles. He frantically pleaded with the ghosts. A pebble whacked his nose. The haunted statue had returned to his pedestal, but didn't stand in his old heroic posture. Instead, he sat with his back to the arguing crowds. A pigeon landed on top of his big bronze hat. The statue tried and failed to shoo it away. "What are they arguing about?" Colt whispered. The next day, Elora grilled her parents about the cemetery protests, and that night she told the others what she had learned. She also remembered to bring some string and gave it to Colt. He tied it around his toe. "Some people want to remove the statue," Elora said. "They say it never should have been built in the first place. But it's hard to remove a haunted statue. They would need to catch it first and coax the ghost somewhere else. That's some tricky appeasement. Mr. Armstrong probably can't manage it." "What about the other group of marching, shouting people?" Avery wanted to know. Elora's face took on a blank and neutral expression, which was odd. Her feelings were usually obvious. "The other group won't let Mr. Armstrong even try to bring the statue down. They say that we must continue to honor General Beauregard Arrington Grizzle because he is a part of our history and heritage." Her quiet tone of voice still made it absolutely clear what she thought of the second group. "He's a pretty icky part of history," Avery said while furiously knitting a scarf. "Do you have any 7s?" Colt asked. He didn't want to talk about this anymore. He just wanted to play cards. Avery stopped knitting and handed over a 7. "Do you have any 7s?" Colt asked Elora. "No," said Elora. "Go fish." They had already tried to play psychic lemur, but none of them could concentrate on complicated games with protests and counter-protests still shouting overhead. Sleep suits was out of the question. Elora was still annoyed that they hadn't even finished a single round. The ghosts of the catacombs began to panic. Those who had no voices made silent. Wailing mouths collapsed into mounds of loose dirt and then remade themselves to wail silently again. Elora stood. "That's it," she said. "I've had enough. Colt, you've obviously got the most sensitive ears. Tell me where the statue is stomping right now." Colt listened. He pointed. "There." "Okay, good." Elora shooed her 2 neighbors away from that spot. "The ghosts in the dirt listen to you, especially when you sing lullabies. Sing them a song now. Ask them to all move away from this place. Avery, you like trees. Talk to the roots. Try to get them to move, too." "How do you know how much I like trees?" Avery asked. None of their sleep suits' confessions had been about trees. "Because you draw trees in your comic, and because you're knitting a tree pattern into your scarf right now. So talk to them." Avery talked to the tree roots in a low whisper. Colt sang to all the haunting ghosts who roiled through the cemetery dirt. Root and soil moved aside. They shifted old coffins out of the way. A gaping hole opened in the ceiling of the catacombs, and surprised statue Beauregard Arrington Grizzle came tumbling through it. Soil and root knitted back together, closing up the hole. The 2 shouting crowds didn't even notice when the subject of their disagreement suddenly disappeared. Mr. Armstrong, the bewildered specialist, saw it happen, but he never told anyone else what he had seen. Avery, Colt, and Elora all felt very proud of what they had just accomplished. They also instantly regretted bringing an unstable and swan-slaughtering metal swordsman into their secret clubhouse. Elora swallowed the taste of fear and bile before she stepped forward to address the statue. "I wish that my hometown had known better than to ever build you in the first place," she said. "But we didn't know better. We built you anyway. Now we need you gone. Your fights are over. All of them, including the one you keep picking with birds. Now stay here. Stay secret. Stay buried for the next 100 years at least. Go stand in the corner and think hard about what you've done." The statue lowered his sword. "Thank you," said a booming bronze voice. In life, I thought everyone else was a ghost, and I myself the only truly living man in all the world. I was the only one capable of action, the only one deserving of worthy consideration. I exulted in that. In death, I was rewarded with the same solitude, set high above all others and venerated for my own delusional cruelty. This town is proud of me, though I was the worst of its sons. I could not convince them that their pride had been misplaced. Thank you for delivering me from this high regard, and from the pigeons. Every day those birds left goopy waste all over my shoulders and hat. Elora nodded as though she had never doubted that the statue would listen to her. Good, she said. You'll be safe here from pigeon poop. The statue lumbered into the farthest corner of the room and stood perfectly still. Elora sat, collected all the scattered cards, and started to shuffle them. Do you think he'll really stay put? Avery whispered. Yes, Elora said. If he doesn't, we can just call down more dirt to bury him completely. She slapped the deck of cards on the ground between them and then drew the ace of spades again. The statue is our secret. Your turn, Avery. We're going to finally finish this game.